Part 2 starts with Module 2, Development of the Construction Contract. Being aware of the progression of a construction contract helps in fully recognizing its significance in the success of a project. I will let you see the owner's business views, dissect the terms of reference, discuss a typical contractual arrangement, explain contractual services, and eventually look into their details by discussing the upstream, downstream deliveries. To recognize a perspective in construction contracting, I will show you the owner's business view. A company. This may be an enterprise. Government. Could be business institution or an individual. As an ongoing concern, which is an entity, whether earning or losing, still in operation. This company defines business needs and plans and justifies capital expenditure. The capital expenditures become the project. When this is the project, there must be a construction contract. The owner has options. He chooses the modes of project acquisition. First, outright purchase, as in investment for large machines. Second, leasehold improvement, improving a property when actually the owner does not own but needed to be improved to suit a business model. Third, construction by company or through a constructor, and that is construction project. By the way, you are hearing the term constructor. It is the term for construction contractor or builder per PD Presidential Decree 1746, IRR Implementing Rules and Regulations, Section 3.09. This is an act creating the Construction Industry Authority of the Philippines. From slides earlier up to the end of this course, you will be hearing the term constructor. Construction projects are initiated from the terms of reference. The firm COR, terms of reference, which have gone through series of reviews, become the basis of construction project contract. And these are clearly defined in the contract. By the way, this is preceded by project brief. The business case is submitted to project sponsors within the owner's organization. This informs the sponsors of an investment proposal to address business needs and plans. Investment approvals are actions by the owner after being convinced of the project's feasibility in terms of its viability and cost. A project brief is prepared to consider the points from the business case and investment approval and contains the scope, such as the inclusions and exclusions, criteria, which will result to project outcomes, codes and standards relative to compliances, definition of the works, which are translated to project activities, and reference drawings, representing the basic concepts. The business case, investment approvals, and the project brief are initiated by the owner. The project brief defines the project feasibility and cost basis. Cost basis dictate the extent of investments and their allocations. The project brief provides information for design engineering of concepts. Further into design engineering, the project brief is sustained with compliance requirements. The perspective on compliance requirements consider the internal standards and guidelines of the owner, the applicable codes and standards, the government rules and regulations. These are included in the project brief, combined to the firm terms of reference and constituting the scope and quality aspects of the project. All these are applied to the project with careful assessment and due diligence. Insights for you. As a citizen of the Philippines, I am pretty sure you are familiar with monument of our national hero, Dr. Jose Rizal. Some time ago, a structure started to rise at its background and became known as the Pambansang Photobomber. The Supreme Court decided the continuation of construction after 2 years. Very challenging to project management and the business of both the constructor and the owner. Was it a failure of due diligence? You may agree when you think of the facts of the situation. A good practice in construction project is the keeping of a due diligence checklist. The owner, as a must, prepares a due diligence checklist to align to legal compliances. As part of the site survey, first of many steps, prepare an EIA, Environmental Impact Assessment, to receive an ECC, Environmental Clearance Certificate. These steps are very important. Project may be ceased and desisted if not having the the ECC. EIA dictates considerations that require big costs of investments. Topographical and cadastral surveys show elevations and depressions of the site. Can be used as information for site development and overall design or placements of structures. Cadastral surveys provide information of property limits. These are very important. You must only build on the property and not more than. Zoning category. Another first of the many steps. The category of the project must align with the zoning classification defined for land use. You don't build a factory in a residential zone. That will cause major problems at construction and into the future. Government infrastructures and community drainage. Considerations for access and foul water discharges. Geotechnical and hydrologic investigations. Important for below-ground construction and well-developed for water sources. Geohazard and seismic classifications. The building must be designed for these classifications. Geohazards are now classified for its locations in the country, such as for potential exposures to flooding, landslide, abnormal climatic exposures like typhoons. These are available in DOST, Department of Science and Technology's Project NOAA. Seismic classifications, such as with seismic levels or seismic zone class, must be considered in building designs over and above building code. Environmental conditions, such as prevailing and consistent seasonal temperature conditions in the region of the site, pathways to typhoons, and other conditions that will likely occur. Cultural considerations that dictate how the project are to be constructed. Limitations and restrictions to preserve cultures for which the project must comply. Utility sources. Locations of tapping points. These may have cost impacts when at great distances to electrical and communication entries and the project's foul water discharge points. Accessibility, egresses and ingresses, or even going to or coming out from the project had to be considered. At the end of the day, project must be efficiently functional. Permissions. Permits to install, permits to operate, occupancy permits, and other regulatory clearances provide requirements to be followed. With the lease from the owner, his logistics concept must be realized. Moving in and out of his project are considerations in design. All specifications and commitments in the project brief. Security assessment. Incorporating the inputs may require investments. Fencing, barriers, intruder detection, security features have to be in place. Ownership. Leasehold improvements and construction of owner's assets dictate the qualities of the project. You don't design and build permanent construction, especially in leasehold improvement projects. Exactly. Numerous items for a checklist. Due diligence, particularly to legal compliance and even towards efficiency of the operational aspects of the project, have to be put forward so the project can be successful. Projects must comply with legal compliances and requirements as set by laws for projects to adhere to or by the owner's commitments for standardized implementation. In-company considerations have to be met. Internal codes and standards. These are guides set by the company for its projects. Best practices derived from learnings from previous projects or as company's positions. Policies and guidelines. In place to preserve the company's commitments to properly operate with consistencies. Special entities such as the insurers. There are risks to prevent and the project has to put safeguards. Insurance is vital to the preservation of wealth of the project owner, but insurers issue guidelines how projects are to be constructed for an insurance coverage to be also issued. Industrial parks have deed of restrictions. The project should align to the restrictions to be allowed to locate in these private locations. Economic zones have specific rules too. Although following the usual government regulations, there are special requirements for the project to consider. Regulatory and statutory. There are lots of regulations and statutes created by government, such as from all of its agencies and others. Specific projects are governed by certain rules. We will go through briefly with regulators and statutes in the next slides. Legal compliance to regulators as mandated by the laws. DOLE, Department of Labor and Employment, with BWC, Bureau of Working Conditions, requires permits to install and permits to operate for installations defined under the rules of the Occupational Safety and Health Standards. DENR, Department of Environment and Natural Resources, with EMB, Environment Management Bureau, requires permits to install, permits to operate, and clearances for projects with impacts to environment. LLDA, Laguna Lake Development Authority, or similar agencies in other regions in the country, requires compliance by projects to their guidelines on foul water discharges. NWRB, Natural Water Resources Board. If you are intending to extract water from the ground, there are also restrictions by this agency. BFP, Bureau of Fire Protection. As with its name, regulations pertaining to fire protection are defined by the Fire Code of the Philippines. DOE, Department of Energy. PISAM, Private Sector Asset and Liability Management. ERC, Energy Regulatory Commission. All of these agencies govern installations when doing power generation. Electric gensets must comply to the regulations. PRC, Professional Regulation Commission, for licensing professionals engaged in the project. TESDA, Technology, Education, and Skills Development Authority, for national certifications of trades. Use of certified tradesmen in construction are mandated. These have impacts to the cost of projects. SEC, Security and Exchange Commission. As an entity, corporations are governed by its rules. DTI, Department of Trade and Industry. As sole proprietorship or partnership, its regulations apply. PCAB, Philippine Contractor Accreditation Board, an attached agency to DTI. It requires all construction contracting business to be accredited to perform construction works. In the Philippines, approximately 15,000 contractors are accredited by PCAB. All others, may be more than hundreds of thousands, are actually violating the PCAB rules. NTC, National Telecommunication Commission, for electronic and communications installation and operation. BIR, Bureau of Internal Revenue, for taxation. Some may not be following the rules, sort of evading taxes in the conduct of their businesses. DILG, Department of Interior and Local Government, requires building and occupancy permits, defining land use or zoning classifications. This agency, through local government units, has administrative supervision over the building official, or OBO. DPWH, Department of Public Works and Highways. It can be particular to government projects. It has technical supervision of the Office of the Building Official. PNRI, Philippine Nuclear Research Institute, for projects having installations with atomic characteristics. DOH, Department of Health, for projects with purposes of health services. Designs of these projects follow DOH guidelines. PNP, Philippine National Police, for administering regulated materials in use for projects such as those which can be used as ingredients for improvised explosive devices. As an example, the hydrochloric acid. To cite an example, security features of projects may align to PNP rules. Operation of security details follow firearms regulations too. Mandated by the laws or internal rules. Special zone, private entity, and insurer, such as economic zone. Industrial park, such as First Philippine Industrial Park or CIMIP. Property developers like Masaya, Makati Central Estate Association Incorporated, Ayala Property Management, Philindes Land Incorporated, as example. They have rules and are needed to be followed by the project. Insurers. One example is FM Global. For an asset to be covered, there are guidelines set by the insurer that are also to be followed. LGUs, local government units, and there are hundreds across the country. A verification of specific requirements must be researched for projects to comply. Other legal compliances. Civil application system stated in the Local Government Code of 1991, plus others required by government agencies. At pre-construction, the requirements are LGU permits, such as the building permit and allied permits. Regulatory permits. Permits to install for gensets, pressure vessels to cite a few. ECC, the EIA, and LLDA. These are required by the environmental laws. FSCR, Fire Safety Compliance Report, a prerequisite to FSEC, Fire Safety Evaluation Certificate. Locational clearance if in special zones. At construction, utilities application, special permits during construction like fencing, public safety as examples. At post-construction, occupancy permit issued when the certificate of completion is submitted, and FSCCR, Fire Safety Compliance and Commissioning Report, a prerequisite to FSIC, Fire Safety Inspection Certificate. Then, permit to operate pursuing from the permit to install applications. Local codes. Promulgations by authorities having jurisdictions over agencies and government units provide for codes and standards written under the Fire Code of the Philippines 2008, National Building Code that sets the minimum building design criteria, occupational safety and health standards, the National Structural Code of the Philippines, 2009 Electrical Code of the Philippines, the Sanitation Code of the Philippines, the Philippine Mechanical Code, and many others. Reiterating due diligence, all other applicable codes must be investigated and considered. The project may be required by specifications to use the requirements of global codes. I'll be citing some of the more popular codes used in construction projects. ASHRAE, American Society of Heating, Refrigeration and Air Conditioning Engineers. NEMA, National Electrical Manufacturers Association. ASEC, American Council of Engineering Companies. ASTO, American Association of State Highways and Transportation Officers. OSHA, Occupational Safety and Health Administration. ARI, American Refrigeration Institute. NFPA, National Fire Protection Agency. USGBC, United States Green Building Council. ASME, American Society of Mechanical Engineers. ASTM, American Standards for Testing of Materials. To continue with the list of global standards, we have DS, British Standards, API, American Petroleum Industry, DIN, German Standardization Institute. This is a translation to English. JIS, Japan International Standard. ASE, American Society of Civil Engineers. CSI, Construction Specifications Institute. CSC, Construction Specifications Canada. AGCA, American General Contractors Association. ISO, International Systems Organization. USFDA, United States Food and Drug Administration. More stringent requirements are specified for projects. Local or global codes. Projects are covered by law. I'll be citing some of the major laws that are applicable to construction projects. National Building Code Presidential Decree PD 1096 with revised implementing rules and regulations RIRR 2015. Batas Pambansa BP 344 Accessibility Law. Fire Code Republic Act RA 9514 with RIRR 2019. This is newly passed. Local Government Code of 1991 RA 7160. This refers to Civil Application Systems by DALG Memorandum Circular MC 2008-113. Toxic Chemicals and Hazardous and Nuclear Waste Control Act of 1999 RA 6969. Laguna Lake Development Authority RA 4850 of 1966 with PD 813 amending Section 450 Executive Order EO 927 defining the function. Philippine Clean Water Act of 2004 RA 9275 with IRR DAO Department Administrative Order 2005-10. Philippine Clean Air Act RA 8749 of 1999 with IRR DAO 2000-81. Environmental Impact Assessment PD 1586 with Department Administrative Order DAO 9637. Water Code of the Philippines PD 1067. Philippine Ecological Solid Waste Management Act of 2000 Republic Act 9003 by virtue of Executive Order 192 Series 1987 with IRR DAO number 2001-34 Series 2001. The Code on Sanitation of the Philippines 1975. Construction Industry Authority of the Philippines
SIAP Law, PD 1746.
Contractors License Law, RA 4566. Philippine Mechanical Engineering Law, RA 8490. Civil Engineering Law, RA 1582. Amending RA 544. Architecture Law, RA 9266. Repealing RA 545. New Electrical Engineering Law, RA 7920, May 1998. Sanitary Engineering Law, RA 1364. Electronics Engineering Law, RA 9292, repealing RA 5734. DILG Joint Administrative Order Number 1, Series 2011. This is Intergovernment Agency Implementation of DOLE DO 13, Series 1998.
Labor Code of the Philippines, PD 442, amended with the following related rules. Occupational Safety and Health Standard, as amended in 1989. Scaffolding Amended Rule, DO 128-13. DO 13, Series 1998. Guidelines governing the occupational safety and health in the construction industry. Guidelines in the implementation of DO 13 Series 1998 by DPWH DO 56 Series 2005. An act strengthening compliance with occupational safety and health standards and providing penalties thereof. Republic Act 11058 with Department Order 120-18, a new law, and other laws. Compliances for insurance clearance. Building design and logistics and process concepts. Consider property losses due to fire, earthquakes, typhoons, and all other acts of God and acts of men. When covered by global insurance, property risk control guidelines, insurance data sheets are the references. In relation to the local laws, are you obeying the compliance requirements? Yes or no? Your decision determines the value of your peace of mind. To prevent oversight over compliance, owner puts in order appropriate contractual arrangements.
Learning check of Module 2, Part 1, Development of the Construction Contract. The project owner conceptualizes the project due to a need. Terms of reference are established from an approved project brief. By due diligence, legal compliance requirements and applicable standards are written into the contract.